from the studios of the Icebox Radio Theater in International Falls, Minnesota. This is Freezer Treats, our chance to introduce you to something tasty from the archives of the Icebox Radio Theater, a theater troupe in Minnesota that's been making podcast fiction since before there was podcasting. Hi, I'm Jeff, and I'm the artistic director of the theater and the host of this podcast. And today we have a very unique offering from the annals of the Icebox Radio Theater. It's entitled Northern Gothic, and is the story of a poor, unfortunate orphan who finds herself taken to a mysterious mansion on a lake in the middle, or an island, I should say, in the middle of a northern lake, unseen by the mysterious uncle who serves as her benefactor. And all I can say about this play is that it was heavily influenced by my daughter's interest in Lemony Snicket's A Series of Unfortunate Events books. I thought those were wonderful stories, so I went ahead and wrote something in a similar vein to see if it could perhaps develop into a series, and it still might. Here now is a scene from Northern Gothic from the Icebox Radio Theater.
Perhaps you're the type of person who loves to hear stories because they're not real, because they allow you to escape the humdrum rhythms of your own life and live, for a time, in a place of fantasy, wonder, magic, and romance. If so, this is not the story for you. It's not so much that the story contains gritty realism, or the absence of lyric fantasy. No. You might want to skip this particular story, because it is so real in its unreality. Your world probably does not have black lakes skirted by lines of sinister forest. It probably does not have isolated islands, desolate rocky outcroppings, seemingly unable to support the simplest life. And if your world does not have such mysterious lakes nor such feral islands, the islands that are not in your world surely lack the twisted, gnarled spires of a manor house, rising like a black octopus into the gray sky above the inky water. If, however, you are looking for such a world, our story may be just the place for you. If so, get comfortable. Find a dark corner where you're unlikely to be disturbed, and give us a moment to allow the others to make a graceful, if hurried, exit. Still here? Excellent. Now where were we? Oh, yes. Elderbury Lodge. If you were to see Elderbury Lodge from a great height, say, the gondola of a mad Prussian prince's dirigible, to give one example, you would be struck by the organic quality of the place. It appears to be a house grown more than built. Turrets rise in wavy lines. Windows refuse to be rectangles. And the only visible door is a massive double affair, which is higher on one side than the other. Now, have the Mad Prince swing his dirigible slightly to the east, and you will see a V of ripples sweeping from a certain point on the lake, like a giant arrow pointing toward the house. And at the very point of that arrow, you will just be able to make out a boat. It's a tiny, rickety boat, which appears to be particularly unseaworthy. It contains 2 people. One is an old Norwegian who looks particularly Norwegian and aggressively old. And the other is the heroine of our tale, a girl of some 14 years named Catherine, with a C like the great Russian empress. And because describing her would take many, many paragraphs of narration, and I feel I have spoken enough for now, I'm going to drop you in her capable hands. She can tell you all about who she is and what she's doing here.
And why it's all so tragic.
Yes, that too.
What?
I said, and why it's all so tragic. I was speaking to the narrator.
Well, make it short. We're just a few minutes from shore. And that was Northern Gothic, or at least a piece of Northern Gothic. It's a standalone play from the Tales from the Rack podcast. That's our science fiction and fantasy podcast here at the Icebox Radio Theater. A direct link to that podcast is in the show notes, as well as a direct link to this particular play if you'd like to hear the whole thing. a very special one in my heart because this really represented sort of a departure from anything we've done before. And as I mentioned in the intro, that is my daughter Rachel, now Rachel Molassig, starring as the young girl in the story. Interesting to note, this was one of the last starring roles she did for the theater before taking off for college, and as a result, we needed to pitch her voice up. She was sounding much more like a teenager, and of course, the girl in the story is about 10 or 11 years old. So that's it for this edition of Freezer Treats. Again, about once a week, we will come on here with a little bite of a play from the Icebox Radio Theater that we hope very much you will go and check out. Again, there is a direct link to Northern Gothics in the show notes. So until next time, this is Jeff saying thanks for the download and reminding you to keep listening.